Hello, everyone. Welcome to this information session about the Molecular and Cellular Biosciences Division at the National Science Foundation. We will introduce to you today MCB programs, our priorities, and funding opportunities that are of relevance to the ASBMB community. 4 program officers from MCB are here today, and we'll start with introductions. I am Manju Hingorani. I'm a biochemist and an enzymologist, and I am a program officer in the genetic mechanisms cluster in MCB. Matthew?
There we go. Hi, I'm Matthew Buechner. I'm a program officer in the cell dynamics and function cluster of MCB, and I've gotten here pretty recently from the University of Kansas, where I studied the beautiful nematode C. elegans behind me.
Marcia?
Marcia.
I'm Marcia Newcomer. Does this work? I'm Marcia Newcomer, and I'm in the molecular biophysics program. I'm a program officer in molecular biophysics, and some of you might recognize this is a diffraction pattern. I'm a structural biologist by training. And okay, thank you.
And David.
Good evening, everyone. I am David Rockcliffe, as Manju indicated, and I am a program director in the Systems and Synthetic Biology cluster in MCB. I have been at NSF for a while. I started out in molecular biophysics in MCB, then transitioned to chemistry, the chemistry of life processes, and now I'm back in MCB in systems and synthetic biology.
Thank you, David. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now in a moment. And here we are. So today, this is the slide that lists the topics that we'll cover today. So we're going to provide a brief introduction to the NSF, to the Biological Sciences Directorate, and the MCB division. And we're going to talk about our cluster priorities. You heard that we have 4 clusters: molecular biophysics, genetic mechanisms, cellular dynamics and function, and systems and synthetic biology. We'll discuss the NSF merit review criteria, both intellectual merit and broader impacts. We'll share some tips about writing a competitive NSF proposal. We'll also highlight some funding opportunities, our core programs, opportunities in the early career stage, in the mid-career stage, some funding opportunities to support integrative, interdisciplinary research with other NSF programs, as well as international partnerships. We will take about 40-45 minutes, we hope, to get through the presentation, and then we'll start addressing all your questions. Before we start, I'd like to note that all these slides are available as a PDF file with this session, and they contain many active hyperlinks. So we're going to note some funding opportunities or resources, and they're marked in red. And so if you download the PDF file, you'll be able to get those hyperlinks, and I'll make it easier for you. So, just a brief introduction to the National Science Foundation. This federal agency was created by the US Congress in 1950 as an independent agency with the mission of promoting the progress of science to advance the national health, prosperity, and welfare, and to secure the national defense. And NSF fulfills this mission by supporting basic scientific and engineering research, as well as the education of a diverse population across all STEM disciplines. In fiscal year 2020, the agency had a budget of $8.4 billion. It received 43,000 proposals that were peer-reviewed and made about 12,000 new awards to scientists, teachers, students all across the country. Most of NSF's awards are made to individuals and small groups of researchers or educators, and the rest support centers, instrumentation, infrastructure, facilities that serve as resources for the scientific research and educational communities. I should note that NSF funding accounts for 27% of the total federal support for basic research at US colleges and universities. And then we have some other numbers of interest. The overall funding rate for NSF in FY20 was 28%. The FY21 NSF budget is about $8.5 billion. And for FY22, the White House recently asked Congress to increase the budget significantly to almost $10.2 billion. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. And that's all we know about that right now. The NSF has a discipline-based organizational structure. We have directorates for engineering, for mathematics and physical sciences, for geosciences, education and human resources, and of course, and others. But then today our focus is on the Directorate of Biological Sciences. We'll shorten that to Bio. Bio's mission is to enable discoveries to understand life and to advance biological knowledge across all scales of biological complexity. And here's another interesting number. About 70% of academic basic research in non-medical biology is supported by the NSF, including bio, so a pretty substantive percent. So let me define bio a little bit. It's organized into multiple divisions. The division of biological infrastructure is first on the left in this organizational chart. It supports the infrastructure and human resources needed to advance biological research and education. Then we have the division of environmental biology, and this supports evolutionary and ecological research from species to ecosystems. The division of integrative organismal systems, IOS, supports research on development, physiology, behavior, and all other complex characteristics at the organism level. And then we have molecular and cellular biosciences, which supports research on the molecular underpinnings of living systems. The Emerging Frontiers division up to the right on your screen, that's a cross-disciplinary division, if you will. It supports synergistic research that crosses across biological scales and boundaries, often through piloting new funding initiatives. And so today, of course, our focus is on the MCB division, which supports research and education in many areas of interest to the ASBMB community. So the mission of the Molecular and Cellular Biosciences Division is to support quantitative, predictive, and theory-driven research to understand complex living systems at the molecular, subcellular, and cellular levels. The division encourages use of approaches at the intersections of biology and other disciplines. And it also promotes activities that build capacity and ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion in the scientific enterprise. And again, as I've noted and written in this strip here, molecular biophysics, genetic mechanisms, cellular dynamics and function, and systems and synthetic biology are the 4 clusters that make up MCB based on broad research areas and themes. Just a little bit of snapshot into what's been going on in the past year. During the pandemic, our proposal review process is being conducted online and continues to be conducted online without any hitch, thanks in no small part to you, the peer reviewing community. In FY20, MCB had a research budget of $152 million. The division received 613 proposals that were reviewed across 17 panels, and the yield was 250 awards, and that's equivalent to a success rate of 35%. There have been some significant changes that benefit the scientific community since the Bio Directorate instituted a no deadline proposal submission policy in 2019. Let me repeat if you don't know this. The Biological Sciences Directorate has no deadlines for submission of proposals. So you can submit your proposal for review whenever you think it's in good shape. And as a result of that, the award as a result of one of the outcomes of these changes has been that the award size has increased by 10%. It takes 20% less time to arrive at a decision. So the average time to decision is between 5 and 6 months. And for the most part, this is because the number of proposals submitted for review has decreased. And as noted earlier, the FY22 NSF budget is likely to increase. So this is a very good time to send your best research ideas to MCB. And as you consider an application, you should keep in mind that the average award size is more than $200,000 a year, and the award duration can range anywhere from 2 years for an exploratory high-risk, high-reward type project to 5 years for a career project. And with that, I'm going to turn the, let me just go back a bit. Sorry, I'm going to turn it over to Marcia and other program officers to introduce their programs. Marcia.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the molecular biophysics cluster. Our cluster supports research to understand how structure and dynamics of biological molecules enable their function. And our emphasis is on understanding the fundamental physical or biophysical principles that confer structure and function. And we strive to fund efforts to establish the forces that govern molecular interactions and or uncover mechanisms of macromolecular regulation, assembly, and organization. And studies that utilize robust experimental and computational approaches in a synergistic fashion receive a very high priority. So the proposals in the following areas are, I'm going to give you some areas that are particularly encouraged. One, we like to see large-scale computations that incorporate experimental constraints obtained using a variety of techniques ranging from NMR to high-resolution microscopy. Note, I said experimental constraints and computation. This is a very important thing. We like to see these two things together and not computation by itself. Molecular dynamic studies on multiple timescales with a goal towards understanding their role in molecular recognition and function. The determination of structure and dynamics, assembly, and interactions of functional large macromolecular complexes, understanding the principles that permit life at extremes, such as high pressure, that in deep sea microbes, etc. Emerging areas such as quantum phenomena in biological systems, or the use of quantum devices to investigate biological problems. And proposals that integrate not only techniques and ideas from other disciplines to tackle more complex biological problems are welcome. And we strongly encourage studies under physiological conditions or those that mimic the native physiological environment. And research at the interface of the biological sciences with the physical, chemical, and mathematical and engineering sciences is also welcome. Don't worry about having to fit 100% inside our little cluster. We like proposals that span clusters, span divisions, as well as clusters. What I would like to point out is that proposals that are basically mechanistic biochemistry, or they're the study of systems from which broad biological principles cannot be derived, these receive low priority in our cluster. Okay, so.
And we'll go to genetic mechanisms now. And as evident from its name, the GM cluster supports mechanistic research on the genetic and epigenetic information contained in DNA, RNA, and protein, and on how this information is organized through the structure and dynamics of DNA, RNA, and protein, how this information is processed, expressed, and regulated in cellular space and over time, to enable molecular and cellular and organismal function, and how it evolves over generations. We are interested in the genetic mechanisms of diverse organisms, and that includes viruses. And so if your research can broadly inform on an obscure organism, can broadly inform our understanding of life, then you just have to make a compelling argument why we should want to know. and then it's welcome. We do prioritize research that explores principles governing the organization and the coordination of processes that replicate, maintain, transcribe, translate, and regulate genomic information. We want to see research that predicts how genomic and epigenomic determinants relate to phenotypes at the molecular and cellular level. And we also welcome research that investigates the evolutionary origins and functions of genes and genomes. And I also want to emphasize that projects that develop or adapt creative technological solutions to open new ways of looking and investigating systems and discovery are welcome, as is collaborative research across disciplines. So biological disciplines, of course, but also especially the quantitative sciences, physics, chemistry, maths, comp sci, and engineering. And this is a theme that runs across all the clusters across MCB. We like to see interactions and intersections with quantitative disciplines. So what that means, of course, is that projects that are primarily descriptive are given lower priority. So if you are if you'd like further information, you're welcome to contact any GM program director. Matthew is up next.
Hi, I'm with the Cellular Dynamics and Function Cluster. This cluster supports the basic research in what's traditionally been called cell biology, structures and functions of the organelles, the membranes and cytoskeleton, as well as metabolism involved in cell function and response signal transduction. We really welcome research that seeks to gain a mechanistic understanding of a wide range, the whole breadth of cellular processes. Projects that develop or adapt new creative tools to enable avenues of inquiry are also welcome. And we welcome collaborative research to provide modeling of these processes and structure, modeling of structure also to provide new insight as to cellular function. Proposals and some of the following areas are particularly of interest to us. One is quantitative approaches to experimentation. Projects that are entirely descriptive are given lower priority, and integration of modeling and experimentation where the bench research informs the modeling, which in turn allows further experimentation iteratively. Those have been found to facilitate mechanistic understanding of cellular processes and are very highly rated. Efforts to span the scales from the atomic to the tens of micron scale are especially attractive, and evolutionary approaches that seek to understand the ancestral and derived states of cellular processes, often through comparisons between key species or cell types, are most welcome. We welcome studies on all organisms from archaea and bacteria to human cells, both in model and less studied organisms that are informative to understanding cellular function. So investigators, you're welcome to contact any of the CDF program directors for further information or to discuss the project that you're interested in carrying out. David is next.
Thank you, Manju. Yeah, I'm always a little challenged with the unmute button. So I will tell you a little about the systems and synthetic biology cluster. This cluster supports proposals that advance and make use of systems and synthetic biology to generate a comprehensive understanding of complex interactions within biological systems and across scales. Such proposals could be investigating signaling, metabolic gene networks, and involves measurements across scales and understanding emergent properties and the accompanying biocomplexity that gives rise to the emergent properties. There's usually integration of computation and experiment, and proposals using experimental computational approaches in a synergistic fashion are of high priority for our cluster. The cluster also seeks proposals that use tractable or established or emerging model systems, including synthetic cells or cell-like systems that facilitate the investigation of regulatory and metabolic networks dynamics and reveal fundamental rules governing complex behavior. The cluster also seeks proposals that investigate the molecular events that drive the interactions and emergent properties of natural and synthetic microbial communities. So our priorities are mechanistic modeling for biological discovery. We like to receive proposals that investigate the origins of life, minimal cell and boundaries of living systems, proposals that exploit experimental and computational methodology development are also welcome, and proposals that discover the rules of assembly function interaction, environmental response for natural or synthetic microbial communities are also welcome. But especially welcome are projects that address biocomplexity through systems biology perspectives. The interest here is in the systems biology perspectives. So from all that has gone before in our cluster description, what you can see is that we have a broad base interest in MCB type science, but the key here is to bring about the systems biology perspective in the investigation. We are also interested in having projects that create new biological parts, devices, circuits, and complex systems, and engineer biological macromolecules to explore fundamental biology. And that's it for the systems and synthetic biology.
Thank you, David. So over the next couple of slides, we'll go over NSF's merit review principles and criteria that frame the proposals that we receive and serve as a basis for review by scientific peers and the NSF staff, and they serve as the basis for decision-making as well. So the National Science Board, this is an advisory body that establishes NSF policies, has set 2 merit review criteria. This is the intellectual merit and broader impacts. And both of these criteria are given full consideration during review, and neither is sufficient by itself. For both the IM and BI components of your proposed project, reviewers and NSF staff will consider what you wish to do, why you wish to do it, how you plan to do it, and how would you know if you succeed, and what will be the benefits if the project is successful. So these are pretty obvious questions, but we'll just give you some tips. These questions are best answered by proposals with the characteristics that are listed over here. So let's focus on intellectual merit first, and that's the research component, of course. The project should have the potential to advance knowledge within a field and preferably across fields as well. It should be creative and original, potentially transformative. It should be well-reasoned and have well-reasoned, well-organized ideas and experiments. The investigators should be qualified. There should be adequate resources available. And for the broader impacts, NSF supports broader impacts activities as a way to advance its mission to benefit society. And that what that means is that you have the opportunity to develop an impactful educational or outreach program and basically ask NSF to pay for it. So your project should have the potential to benefit society beyond the outcomes of the research itself. It should include one or more of the goals that are listed here. So promote student training and education, enhance infrastructure and resources for the target community, should engage in outreach activities, And we would like to emphasize that NSF prioritizes diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so NSF places high value on broadening participation of underrepresented groups in science and engineering and maths. I should also note that NSF does not prescribe what broader impact activities you should conduct. What we expect is a good faith effort and a commitment to a broader impacts program that advances NSF's mission. So when you prepare your proposal, these are some of the nuts and bolts of what you want to convey about the intellectual merit. You want to obviously present a new idea. You want to detail the research rationale and approaches, explain the expected outcomes and alternative plans if those don't work out. You want to demonstrate your qualifications. So the preliminary data and publications help in that case. But beyond that, it helps to think like a reviewer. So take a step back, because this reviewer is likely someone who has expertise in your broad field, but is not familiar with your work in detail. So you want to make sure that their bigger picture questions are clearly addressed throughout the project description. So big picture questions like impact. What is the impact of the project? Is it a significant stride, or is it an incremental step in the field? How good is the foundation of the project? Is there a sound rationale? Is the foundational data of high quality? And feasibility. Can your stated goals be accomplished? So it's really helpful to, again, step back and make sure that these higher level qualities are imbued throughout the project description. And that I think is what is the one of the really important characteristics we've seen in successful proposals. In the case of your broader impact plans, really the same strategy applies. Of course, you want to convey the nuts and bolts of the project. So you want to document past activities and their impact. You want to present a clear and well-developed plan going forward. This is an important point. A lot of people who come to NSF often talk about their past successes and what they've done in the past, but they kind of give short shrift to what they want to do going forward. So remember to talk about what you want to do in the future with the money that you will hopefully get from NSF. So you want to describe the expected outcomes, and you also want to provide an assessment of your proposed program. And then again, beyond that, it helps to step back and think like a reviewer. And the reviewer will try to assess, and of course the NSF staff who are making the decision will also try to assess if you have identified particular needs in your community. And that can be your department, your institution, the local community, the regional community, the global community. It really is up to you. But the point is, what needs have you identified? And does your project address those needs? And so to that end, are your goals appropriate? Are you targeting the appropriate groups? Can your plan be executed effectively? So do you have the resources? Are you asking for the resources from the NSF? Are there links between your research and broader impact programs? So there's opportunities to take advantage of synergies between your two research and broader impact program, and that helps you develop as an NSF funded investigators. And the reviewers will of course try to assess what kind of impact your program will have on the targeted community. And most importantly, how will you know if you are succeeding? And again, these are the qualities, the higher level qualities that we see in successful proposals. And then there is this question that we are asked often, and I think is also of interest to the ASBMB community. What about medical research? So according to NSF's proposal and award policies and preparation guide, PAPG for short, research with disease-related goals is normally not supported. So etiology, diagnosis, treatment of any human diseases or disorders is not supported by NSF. And I'd like to explain that the NSF and bio directorates, and also animal models and drug development and drug testing is not supported either. So just to explain that prohibition, if you will, a bit, is it's really aimed at avoiding duplication of effort and mission across the many federal agencies that support life sciences research. And of course, you know that funding medical research in humans is the primary mission of the National Institutes of Health. So, you know, you want to try, we're trying to avoid duplication of effort. That said, if your basic research project has future implications of human health, well, those outcomes are a societal benefit. And so they add value to the broader impact of your project. And so such projects can be supported by MCB and the Bio Directorate. We get this, again, as I said, we get this question a lot, and the answer is nuanced. So it may help us to just take a look at the examples that are listed here. So mechanisms of DNA damage and repair, yes. Studying a DNA repair pathway or an enzyme as a drug target, no. Fundamental questions about viral structure, replication, evolution, yes. Focus on therapeutic interventions against infection, no. If you want to study mechanisms underlying cell motility, yes. But if you're studying metastasis of tumor cells, no. And I can also provide a rule of thumb based on my own experience as a PI who was funded often at the same time by both the NIH and the NSF. If your medically oriented research raises all sorts of interesting why questions about fundamental research, fundamental mechanism, then those are worth pitching to the NSF. So the bottom line really is, if you have a question about whether your project threads the needle with respect to basic research with potential human health implications, just send us an email query and we'll be able to help you sort that out. Marcia, you're up next.
Just when I lose my screen. Okay, but here we go. So this slide is going to illustrates how you can find funding opportunities that we have in MCB. So you can sign up to get email alerts by signing into our blog, and you'll see that too. But if you don't really want to get inundated with emails all the time, you can just bookmark this page and go back and visit it routinely. And every time we change something or have a new type of solicitation or DCL or Dear Colleague letter that tells you something about what you might want, funds that we're looking to give away, I guess you'd say, you can check here periodically and see what's available. So if you go to this webpage, then what you can see here is that you can see the funding opportunities, and the links in the funding opportunities will take you both to, we have the funding opportunities that are MCB specific are highlighted there, but also we have all funding opportunities that are relevant to MCB across the NSF. So the link is, the page is kept up to date. And again, we have the blog as well, where you can look at the recent announcements for funding opportunities. And so I encourage you to visit this page often and sign up for the blog if you want to get these updates sent to your email box. Okay, all right, so the next slide. Okay, but let's go through the different, we're going to highlight here some solicitations or some types of funding opportunities that we have. So what you've heard so far is that MCB funds has 4 clusters, and that we fund theory and methods and technology research as a whole. We support projects that use theory, methods, and technologies from various disciplines to address major biological questions on the subcellular and cellular levels. So this is part of our core solicitation, and it can be found, more information can be found at the NSF looking at this proposal at this solicitation number 21509. And these are investigator initiated research projects. And if you want to get a breadth, an idea of the breadth of research supported by MCB. There's actually, you can go to that NSF Awards link there and look through our catalog or our listing. You can select for only MCB awards and see what kind of research that is currently being supported. From what you've heard from, I think, the 4 clusters, you've heard a lot of the same things. One, that we are looking at research that integrates across scales, and that we're looking for transformative approaches, and that we looking for research that investigates life at the molecular and cellular level, and investigates evolution at the molecular and cellular level, that we're looking for things that synthesize lifelike systems. And we also look for fund research to understand and predict the structure function of the genome and the epigenome. You also heard that we don't have deadlines, that you can submit your proposals year round, and I'm going to point out an exception to that rule in the next slide. But in general, we are deadline free. So one thing I would like to point out, that our solicitation, our rule of thumb is that basically we don't support technique development or method development. So what I mean by that is that we don't support method development if it's just method development. We love to see method development that is driven by an important biological question. That is a strength of a proposal, not a weakness. So although I say we don't support technological developments, what I mean is that for tech's sake, that's not for us. But please, if you want to push technology in any way, whether that be computationally, biophysical, synthetic organisms, etc., those types of proposals are welcome in MCB. Okay, so the next one is the Career Award. So this is a NSF-wide solicitation. And so because it's NSF-wide, it does have a deadline. And the career solicitation is open once a year, and the deadline is always in July. It's always late in July. This year it will be July 26th. And basically it's a faculty early career development plan. And it's one of NSF's most prestigious awards. And the idea is to support early career faculty with high potential to serve as academic role models in research and education. So what we like to see in these is a really nice integration of teaching and research, and how the teaching is, how these two feed into each other and off each other, and as the PI grows into his or her career. So these are very long-term proposals. They're 5 years. In bio, we say the minimum is 500,000. And again, we're looking for projects that push the field, the frontiers of the field, and effectively integrate research and education. So if you are eligible, tenure track faculty who are obviously not tenured, so this is are eligible to apply to these, I encourage you to attend one of the webinars that's listed here. So we routinely have webinars, but before the career deadline date, so that you can learn about how to prepare a career proposal. So again, in these webinars, we have one in MCB, and they are NSF wide as well. Okay, so so now MCB has its own special, I think, nice category of proposal, and it's called transitions. And the idea behind the transitions was to reach people at maybe mid-career or even late career stage that want to go somewhere new with their research. Maybe they want to expand their research. They've reached a point where they think if they really want to answer this question they've been after for 15 years, they're going to have to go in another direction. And so what this is it enables a mid-career or later stage scientist to pursue an exciting new avenue or inquiry, or expand or transition their research towards research with greater impact, to retool or retarget, etc., or just expand your targets. The idea is that it's hard to change directions once you're established, because as we all know, reviewers look for preliminary data. And so if you're going to go off and do something you've never done before, they might expect you to see some publications with a collaborator before you even go off in that direction. So this idea is to help you get through that stage. Basically, it's to get you started. And it's a funded sabbatical. So you can ask for up to 6 months of a salary for buyout, and then you can have clearly dedicate yourself to your research. And these proposals are for 3 years total. And the idea is that in those second 2 years, you bring this sabbatical thing that you learned back to your lab and get this project going. And so these are limited to 750,000, but that basically should give you enough to get training and your own training in 1 year and teach a postdoc in year 2 and 3 to carry this on. And what reviewers are going to look for there is a strong foundation of prior accomplishments and a compelling plan that for moving your research in this new direction. And what the hope of this type of mechanism is that it will aid PIs in crossing disciplinary boundaries and encourage interdisciplinary research. Again, these are the standard MCB, no deadline proposal, and we consider these all year round. Okay, so the next one, it's a little bit, it's more broadly offered, not quite all of National Science Foundation, but quite a few directorates in the National Science Foundation offer now what's called a mid-career advancement. It's a little bit more tightly defined than MCB's transition proposal. The mid-career advancement is really what that's for is people at the associate professor level who have reached a point in their career where they really need to be relieved of some teaching responsibilities and other kinds of things that bog them down in order to basically refocus and revitalize their research. And so the idea here is that it is again protected time, in this case 6.5 months of salary, and to allow the PI, and it encourages the PI to go and form a partnership with basically a mentor, and to develop a new or strengthen an area of investigation. And so it will provide up to $100,000. And so if the PI wants to go off for, again, a sabbatical, that's possible. And what's important here, and I forgot to mention in the last one, is never mind. Let me get through this one and then I'll tell you what I forgot in the last one. Okay. So basically what we really want to see here is that this new training year, basically this new research year that this PI has gained is really going to make them make it to the next stage and be promoted to full professor. It's really going to invigorate their program, make them highly competitive for promotion, and to develop a new network of co-investigators or collaborators and foster innovation and cross disciplines. That has a target date. So a target date means we would like to see these in February, but they technically can be accepted all year long. So what I forgot to tell you in the transitions, sorry about that. What's really important is your chair has to be on board with this, and a letter from the chair that's very supportive and is going to tell why you need this time off and how you're going to benefit from it, and that their chair is total in agreement. And if you have a regular sabbatical coming up, a 6-month sabbatical plus another 6 months for this, there's no reason you can't combine those into a full year sabbatical, and that's what I meant to mention on the transitions. So I guess that's what I've done here. Okay, yes. All right, we'll pass this on to the next speaker.
So thank you, Marcia. So the next funding opportunity that I'd like to highlight is a call for planning conferences or workshops that bring together scientists to think about how the molecular and cellular sciences community can extract the most value from all the data that we've been amassing at this again, molecular and cellular level at an extremely fast pace. And most recently, just through these incredible advances in high resolution and high throughput technologies. And so, you know, what I hear a lot from scientists is we're drowning in data and we're not using it effectively to prompt new discoveries and new technologies. So we're asking now, how can the NSF support synthesis, integration, widespread access and use of these data to answer complex, long-standing questions, to spur research in new directions, and to provide training opportunities for a diverse scientific community so that we have the opportunity to grow a new generation of scientists who are inculcated in the skills and the mindset needed to utilize all these data that are being generated. So NSF has funded information synthesis centers in other areas, environmental sciences, ecological sciences and evolution. And these have been very successful in accomplishing the goals that I just mentioned. And we think that this is an opportune time, well past an opportune time actually, for a synthesis center focused on some themes in molecular and cellular sciences that just deal with all the data that is being generated. So this funding opportunity, 21017, it offers up to $100,000 for planning conferences, so scientists can get together, build a network, generate ideas and plans for a potential molecular and cellular science information synthesis center in the future. These centers do not fund new experimental research, but they do fund analytical tool development, training and workshops, and just all sorts of ways to synthesize information and generate and develop new questions and new directions for research. So it is a very exciting opportunity. These synthesis centers are pretty large scale centers. The last couple have been funded for up to 10 years, for 10 years at a total of $40 to $50 million. So we really want the community to engage with this question and use the opportunity to have planning conferences to generate these ideas for a future center. So the opportunity lists April 1 as a target date, but we are accepting proposals all through this year. And so I encourage you to contact me if you are interested. And I'm going to turn this over to David now.
Thank you, Manju. So this program that I'm about to describe to you, has come about from a collaboration between MCB, in particular the Systems and Synthetic Biology Cluster, and the Division for Mathematical Sciences, and specifically the Mathematical Biology Program. And this is what we call a Dear Colleague letter, which is usually an announcement to the community for the specific type of proposals that we are interested in at the time. And this program is called Models for Uncovering Rules on Unexpected Phenomena in Biological Systems. We are very good at acronyms, okay? And this is one of the many acronyms that we have. This Modulus program is intended to promote the integration of synergistic collaborations between mathematicians and biologists. And it prioritizes the development of mechanistic mathematical models that involve novel or non-trivial mathematical methods to address biological questions. And in doing so, reveal biocomplexity. There are two characteristics that we look for in two particular characteristics that are important for these proposals that submit to this program. And that is, they should develop and use integrated mathematical approaches and novel modeling platforms for complex biological systems, because the intention here is to have the biological system as to challenge the mathematics, and that's the benefit that the mathematics division derives, or the mathematical biology program derives. But then these same models and platforms that have been developed should be used for a tool for discovery-driven science and biology. And therefore, they should address compelling system-scale biological questions. Okay. Now, you may submit these types of proposals either to MCB, in which case you could submit them at any time, or you could submit to the mathematical biology program, in which case they have a submission window that opens on August 20th and it closes on September 5th of this year. Now, remember that in particular, this program looks for projects that push the boundaries of systems and synthetic biology science, and in math bioscience as well. And those types of programs are the ones that, those types of proposals are the ones that are prioritized when we are considering our portfolio development. Now, for this program, it is good for you to contact, if you're interested, a program director in MCB or in the Math Bio program. The model that we use in dealing with inquiries, because there is a mathematical component as well as a biological component to these proposals, we usually have program directors in both divisions look at the inquiries. But you may make your inquiry either through the mathematical biology program, or you may make your inquiry through the systems and synthetic biology cluster. Now, if your science, it goes beyond the systems and synthetic biology cluster, but it is science that is pertinent to MCB, then a good idea would be to ensure that you do have an MCB program director look at your project summary to ensure that the science that you're proposing to do does fit with the Division of Molecular and Cellular Biosciences interest. Okay. Now, research that cuts across distinct disciplines is welcome at NSF. And there are several programs that we collaborate with on a formal or informal basis, such as the chemistry of life processes in the Division of Chemistry, the physics of living systems in the Division of Physics, the cellular and biochemical engineering program in the division in engineering directorate in the CBET division. And there are examples of programs that interact with MCB. And we often co-review and co-fund proposals that are investigating molecular and cellular systems, but are of interest to both programs. So it's generally a good idea to contact a program director in a pertinent program, and we can help we can help you figure out where your project would fit. So if you submit an inquiry to me, for example, and it looks like it overlaps with engineering, I could always discuss that inquiry with the program directors in engineering and pass on any advice that we'll have to you. Okay.
Hi. So far we've been talking mostly about programs that are within MCB. It's important to remember that the Bio Directorate has 4 divisions, and the programs often overlap, and we encourage collaborative research that crosses between disciplines. So proposals, especially collaborative proposals that creatively integrate subdisciplines to understand general biological principles, are enthusiastically supported. So if you have an idea you think could be suitable for cell physiology in MCB and animal physiology in iOS, for example, you could list MCB on the cover page of your proposal, and at the bottom or on the next page, you can also mention iOS. Program officers from both divisions will look at the proposal and decide where the proposal will get the most appropriate review, or sometimes decide that review by multiple programs is warranted. So when you have begun to develop your idea, I think this is the most important thing. When you have begun to develop your idea, contact a program officer. Part of our job is to help you get your proposal before the most suitable panel of reviewers. So in addition to programs individual to MCB or to iOS or to DBI or DEB, Bio has 2 programs that are specifically designed to support cross-disciplinary research that I'll describe next. The first of these is called IntBio, Integrative Research in Biology. And this is a program specifically to fund programs that cross from MCB to one of the other divisions, either iOS if it's at a whole animal level, or DEB if it's ecological. So it is designed to allow collaborations of investigators from different disciplines to work together to create synergistic results. Projects suitable for review in a single bio division, therefore, are not applicable for this program. Each proposal must be submitted to 2 of the bio divisions. And then in addition to those 2 bio divisions, fields beyond biology could be included if needed. Another important aspect of the IntBio program is the goal is to train young researchers, diverse groups of young researchers, to be able to think and work across disciplines. So in order to be able to carry out this kind of synergistic research. So the key aspects for this program are bold questions, an integrative approach, multiple, at least 2 bio divisions, strong collaborations, and strong training and inclusion programs. And then the other interdisciplinary program across bio is a larger program called Biology Integration Institutes. These support larger collaborative teams, mid to even large size teams, investigating broad questions that cross scales in biology. Team members' efforts should be integrated, should be synergistic with each other to maximize the effect on both research and education. So these can bring together large cohorts of researchers and can ask for large amounts of money. This has a deadline that was in early 2021. We haven't announced the new deadline yet. It will be early in 2022, so please keep an eye out. You can go to the nsf.gov website and look up 20-601 there in the search function there, and it'll go to the solicitation that gives you information about this program, including the deadline in the future. And David, one more time.
Thank you, Matthew. So continuing with the topic of cross-disciplinary and collaborative research, we'd also like to highlight that while NSF does not support individual researchers and our organizations that are based in foreign countries, we do have many established partnerships with international science funding agencies. These arrangements typically enable NSF to support the US-based partner and the foreign funding agency to support the international partner in a collaborative project. And some opportunities of interest to the ASBMB community include these examples that are shown in the slide here. We have the NSF, US, Israel, Binational Foundation Collaborative Research. And these projects represent an integrated collaborative effort that align both with NSF merit review criteria, that align with both NSF merit review criteria, sorry. And for MCD bio, there is no deadline. We also have the NSF UKRI, UK Research and Innovation. And in particular, it is the BBSRC. The BBSRC in the UK is equivalent to our bio. And in that program, there are special topics that are associated with that program. And the topics for the 2021 year, it would be biological informatics, microbes and the host immune systems, quantum biology, and the synthetic cell. You submit your proposals to MCB bio, and there is no deadline for proposals that are submitted there, but they usually ask that you submit your you need to have, in that case, a letter of intent. And once you've been invited to submit to your full proposal, then you're usually asked to submit your full proposal within a certain period of time after having received the notice to submit the full proposal. And another collaboration with an international, with an agency that is located overseas is the NSF collaboration with the Agence Nationale de la Recherche in France. And the topics for 2021 are physics from molecules to cell. And the model that is used there, it's that 1 year you have ANR doing the review, another year you do have NSF doing the review, and it alternates like that. And I'd like just to bring your attention to another opportunity, which is supplemental funding for collaborations between NSF and European Research Council awardees. This is organized by the OIA, the Office of Integrative Activities. Yeah. Now, one thing that I'd like to point out to you before wrapping up is that you may submit a regular proposal that has a collaborative component. If you have, for example, a collaborator who is located in France, you may request travel money to go and visit your collaborator there in the foreign country. But what NSF will not do is pay for your collaborator to come and visit you here in the United States. But you may request funds in a regular proposals to go visit your collaborator who is located overseas. And so now, just to wrap up, this is our last content slide, and it has some key take-home messages. Remember that except for a few special programs, the Biodirectorate, including MCB, has no proposal submission deadlines. So you may submit your proposal whenever it's good and ready. And when you think that it's in good shape and mature enough for it to go before a review panel, you may do just that. With the funding rates and award sizes that are relatively high and a 6-month time to decision, the average is even less than that. This is indeed an opportune time to submit your best ideas to MCB. We'd also like to highlight that NSF is receptive to high-risk projects with potential for high impact. We really like to see those kinds of investigations. We support interdisciplinary research and education through many informal and formal mechanisms, and international collaborations are encouraged as well. NSF offers support for your educational outreach efforts. You may request financial support for these in your budgets. And we offer support for creating a more diverse scientific community, which is a priority for us. We're cognizant of challenges faced by investigators in the mid-career stage, and we have new funding opportunities to enable them to rejuvenate their research programs for greater impact. So we encourage you to contact a program officer by email in order to discuss your ideas. The most effective way is to send an approximately 1-page summary of your project. And please address both the intellectual merit and the broader impact components in your description. That summary usually serves as a basis for discussion when we may have a subsequent conversation with you on the telephone. So tips for what to include in the summary are available in one of the past MCB office hour presentation from February 2020, and it may be found. It's located on the MCB blog. So here ends our presentation for today. And
thank you, David.
Yes.
So again, I just want to remind everybody that a PDF file of these slides is available with this session. And of course, we can answer your questions now or by email if you'd like. So the email addresses are up here. If you'd like, feel free to contact us. And finally, I would like to advertise our virtual office hours that we hold every month on the second Wednesday of each month at 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The next one is going to be focused on the career program, and the one after that, that's on May 12th, and the one after that in June is on tips for writing a great NSF proposal. Of course, we'll take your questions at that time as well. So I think with that, we can end our presentation. I'm going to stop sharing our screen. And here we are. And we can take a few moments to...
We do have, yeah, we do have some questions if we're ready with some.
We can do that. I will take a look at the screen here, and Marcia, I don't see what you've marked, but we do have just a few questions. So I'm going to go through them in the order in which they were received.
I've marked all of them, so.
Okay, very good. So this is a question about non-USA scientists and whether they are eligible for NSF financial support. I think we can give a nuanced answer for this one. David, would you like to go ahead and start addressing that question?
Yeah, I could start, and everybody else could jump in any points that I've omitted. Yeah. Well, for non-US scientists, let us say, for example, you are a faculty that's working at a university, for example, and the NSF the NSF view is NSF will accept proposals from anyone that the university authorizes to submit a proposal. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're working on a foreign visa, as long as the institution authorizes you to submit a proposal, then NSF will receive and review that proposal. There are other circumstances. You might be a student, you might be a graduate student, for example, or a postdoc, and the person with the NSF grant, your research director with an NSF grant, is able to support students and postdocs on foreign visas. There are special cases. For example, if you are applying for a GRF, a graduate research fellowship, there are special programs that require US residency or citizenship. And you have to look for that, look for those programs before you can determine, or you ought to look carefully at those kinds of programs before determining your eligibility if you are on a foreign visa.
Thank you, David. The solicitations are very clear about eligibility. There's a whole section on who is eligible in every solicitation.
Right.
So hopefully that does answer the question. Thank you, David. I'm going to ask the next one, and that is, and Marcia, I'll ask you to address this one.
Yeah, I can do that one.
As an alternative to a sabbatical, can you give examples of similar professional development mechanisms that have been funded for NSF mid-career transitions?
Okay, so I think, first of all, we're using the word sabbatical pretty loosely. Okay, so I guess, so I was trying to imagine what other, we've only had this thing for a couple of years. So let me tell you a couple of things about the variety of how the different types of training that people have gotten. So in other words, you may not want to go to, what I can tell you is maybe you don't want to go to somebody else's lab for 6 months, but maybe there are 3 different things you need to do, and you want to go visit 3 different places because you want to come back and bring these 3 whatevers back with you, ideas or techniques or skills. That's not a problem. So it doesn't have to be a traditional sabbatical in the sense that there's a single host. You can travel. You can take multiple, you can visit many different places. So if you think about a sabbatical as only being something that's sanctioned by a host professor, well, you might then, yes, you can have something else. You just have to argue for it. So maybe you want to go learn cryo-EM, and there are cryo-EM centers that now have training. So I guess that doesn't count as a typical sabbatical, but that something like that would be covered, would be allowed. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you want to go learn AI at a tech company. I think in that case, you just have to argue for why it's necessary and what you would get out of it. And I don't see that wouldn't disqualify you. It doesn't have to be a traditional type of sabbatical. So
sorry, Marcia. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay. Wait a minute. There was one way I was going and I forgot my brain just, okay. So the other thing is sometimes people can actually get what they need on their own campuses. And we've had some that have been successful. That is especially true in the time of COVID when travel is a problem. And so, yes, we are open to considering maybe something on your own campus, if that's what you're saying, why, not a sabbatical. So it's basically some sort of training or some sort of experience and why this is going to be important to you. It doesn't have to be a traditional sabbatical is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, Marcia. So the next question is, can you offer any advice on how to decide what budget to request for an investigator-initiated grant, the dollar amount and the duration? And maybe this can be folded in with the next question, which is, what is the average awarded amount for international grants? So yeah, dollar amounts and duration for core proposals and maybe international as well. Matthew, would you like to take a shot at
Sure.
this
Well,
one?
I'm not sure about the international, but they tend to be similar. Typically the majority of investigator initiated grants are about 3 years, and people ask for generally in the $700,000 to $800,000 range is what we see typically. Actually, maybe a little higher now, going up to 900,000. And so that's including overhead. So something in the range of 250,000 a year is pretty typical, I say. So it's comparable to what NIH is supporting on a lot of their grants too. With foreign, if you've got travel in there, you can request money for the travel budget. And you have to make a strong case as to why you need to go overseas for that. The money, we cannot spend money, give money to the foreign PI though. So they would have to get money elsewhere. But so,
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that the way the partnerships, those particular partnerships are set up is that it's a single proposal, but and it's reviewed either in this agency or the other one generally, and the NSF pays for the U.S. investigators' expenses, and actually in that case, travel is encouraged, particularly for students for international experience, but they don't pay for the international partner. The international agency pays for them. So for the NSF side, it's going to be sort of like your regular investigator award, because it's just paying for the US component of the research. But the easy part about this is that it's one proposal, it's integrated, and so it's a really great opportunity.
And if it's a career proposal, if you're a beginning investigator and it's a career proposal, those are 5 years. So those generally are, these days, I'd say they're running around $1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, even more than that, actually.
More than
So yeah. I do want to highlight that the career, since we're talking about collaborations, I don't want there to be a mix-up, because career proposals, you're not allowed to have a co-PI on those. They're really funding the investigator even more than the project. So it's a single investigator grant. Let me get to the next question, which is, does MCB offer any postdoc grants for areas such as ion channel biology with a teaching component? Maybe Matthew, you can take a stab at this as well.
We don't have the kind of education postdoc grants that NIH has, you might be able to find them in the education directorate, not in the bio. Postdoc, and we don't have anything like the K99 awards that continues on over. Generally, postdocs are funded from their PI and on the PI's budget. We definitely get proposals from the PI that the postdoc is listed as
as senior personnel.
As senior personnel, and often that's the bulk of the budget, actually.
Right. I do want to point out that the Division of Biological Infrastructure, which again funds both physical and material infrastructure as well as human resources, they have a very robust postdoc funding program. And in fact, perhaps it's been expanding in the past year or so and may expand a bit more. So this is, again, a good time to take a look at the Division of Biological Infrastructure, DBI, and take a look at their postdoc programs. They have a few different tracks. And so perhaps your research could, certainly on ion channel biology, may fall within one of their tracks. You just have to read the solicitation, but absolutely there is dedicated postdoctoral funding available from the bio directorate, not MCB in particular. But as Matthew said, MCB funds lots of postdocs, but through their PI grants. I think hopefully that covered the response to this question. I can go ahead and ask, the publications are important for supporting an NSF proposal. If the applicant is from a small liberal arts college teaching a full load, time limits the amount of effort spent to collect data and write articles. Will NSF accept data included in journals and posters that are dedicated to student-professor projects? So I think this question is mostly about the scope and scale of a proposal from a small liberal arts college. And we have lots of encouraging information about that. I think maybe Marcia, you'd like to take a stab at this one, perhaps?
Yeah, we have research at primarily undergraduate institutions. We fund that, and those proposals come in through and are judged in are rated in our regular panels. But what I would like to assure you is that our panelists understand perfectly well, even though that one cannot have as many publications when you have a teaching load like people do at primarily undergraduate institutions. And so those proposals are judged, but they're calibrated. And what is expected in terms of preliminary results is a little bit lighter than what one might expect from certainly lighter than what one expects from an R1 institution, and productivity is also calibrated appropriately when that's judged. What is really important is to show how this research impacts the students. So anything for professor-student type of publication, that certainly would be a plus if that were cited in the proposal. So so how you provide an enhanced training environment for the students is very important. So these types of proposals are called RUIs, R-U-I, and one of the things that you have on your things you have to have in a RUI is, besides a regular proposal, you have up to 5 pages, which is a whole lot of text, to explain why this is so good for your institution. So how your department overall will benefit, how your students will have a better environment. So in other words, you get to emphasize all of those student-mentor relationships in there, and how this funding will help you there. So yes, we do look at people's publication records, but yes, we know that a full-time teaching load is a whole lot different from an R1 university teaching load. And we also know that people at smaller institutions can have a tremendous impact on student training. And so all of those are taken into account, and the proposals are calibrated. The judgment, the ratings of the proposals take those facts into account.
Thank you, Marcia. They really are, judged as a cohort instead of being put up against a proposal from an R1 institution. We're very sensitive to those factors, as Marcia clearly outlined. I do want to say that the solicitation that Marcia mentioned, the RUI, or research primarily at undergraduate institutions, that's the RUI solicitation is 14-579. If you'd like to take a look at that, 14-579. Thank you, Marcia. I'm going to go to the next question, and maybe Matthew can take this one. For an int bio proposal, can you have 2 PIs? It's a nice, simple question.
You should have 2 PIs. Well, yes, you're applying, yes, you can have 2 PIs because you're going across divisions. So it should be going through 2 divisions. Collaborations are, in fact, actually in all of the MCB proposals, you can have 2 PIs. You can have a proposal that is from 2 institutions that is a collaboration. And each of those PIs can have their own budget that can be pretty big to make that one project work. And such collaborative proposals are looked on favorably by MCB.
Thank you, Matthew.
Sure.
I think we have one more question sitting here, and we do have a few minutes more. So do you fund collaborations between American and Canadian scientists? Do the grants offer salary components for the principal investigator? Are proposals for transforming teaching to overcome COVID limitations? That's a bunch of different questions. So let's go with the American and Canadian scientists. I'm not aware of a special funding opportunity with Canadian scientists.
If I may say something,
sorry, David, go ahead.
That's okay. You know, NSF would not normally fund an organization, a foreign organization, but there are times that an NSF will give money to an individual, a collaborator of yours, who is overseas. But those are very special circumstances, and you have to go to great lengths to justify why this particular expertise that you are tapping in the foreign country is needed for your project, and you ought to say why, you know, you can't find, well, not why you can't find it here in the United States, but you have to convince us that this expertise is not located here in the United States, and it's imperative that you go overseas for it. There are other cases where, like in environmental biology, for example, where you are doing research at a particular site, and there may be an institution at that foreign site where that is involved in the research, or that might be controlling aspects of the site that you are doing work with. In other words, they might be some kind of collaboration with this foreign, and this is particularly so with people who are in astronomy and have to use sites, you know, telescopes that are located all over the world. But you know, the bottom line is it's not disallowed, but there has to be a compelling reason for it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, David. So the other part, I think we do have a couple of minutes more. The other part of the question was, are proposals for transforming teaching to overcome COVID limitations, are these available for funding? I think I don't have a specific answer to that, but if you are developing a research proposal that you want to submit to MCB or to any other program at the NSF, certainly, as I said, broader impacts are a really critical component, an equal component of proposals that are sent to the NSF, and they are highly prioritized. So what you do to help your community, your student community, mitigate the negative impacts of COVID, this is an extremely timely effort, and also an effort that will pay dividends in the future in terms of remote learning or remote collaborative projects. And so any strategies that you'd like to test to enable this new types of teaching, these can be part of your research proposal for sure. They will be welcomed. You should take a look at the EHR Directorate, Educational and Human Resources Directorate. I do not know, but maybe they are thinking up opportunities for this idea that you presented here in your question. Matthew?
I'm just looking right now, the EHR Director, Education and Human Resources Directorate, has a Dear Colleague letter talking about supplemental funding for COVID-19 impacts. So I would start talking with people over there. And I should have said before, with the postdoc research program, in the DBI, that's a solicitation 20-602. So you can go to the nsf.gov website and just search for that 20-602, and it'll give you more information about research fellowships in biology.
Thank you, Matthew. I think that's the end of the questions we have in the session, as far as I can see. We are nearing the end of our time as well, so I'd say we are good.